Thank you very much. Short comment on Attila's papers. So I'm very sympathetic to this idea of ongoing primitive accumulation, but I think there is some conceptual clarifications that need to be made, right? So you talked about the dependence of capital on extra-capitalist spheres and also the expropriation thereof. And I think those are two different things, right? So if you look at primitive accumulation in Capital Volume 1, what we see is not that capitalists expropriate land and drive off peasants and but the landowners expropriate the land and the capitalists just come in and they benefit from that, from the proletarization of former peasantry. So they benefit from it, they depend on it, but they don't expropriate any land, they don't do anything like that, right? So on the Marxian picture. Whereas when we have something like what Marx calls the formal substantial of labor to capital, then what we see is that we have these extra capitalist forms of labor and the capitalists just grab it, right? So we have people like weaving clothes at home and the capitalists just sort of grab that. And then we have the real substantial of labor under capital where something completely different happens, which is not expropriation, it's exploitation. And I mean, there's a third category. And I think a sufficient, some more detailed differentiation between these would make the account more clear and perhaps improve the analysis. Thanks.
Thank you for that. The gentleman is here with the laptop.
Thank you. I really enjoyed both papers, and so I've just got a little question for each of you. First of all, to Attila, I thought your introduction to social reproduction theory and Jason Moore's work was a superb introduction. I agree with you that this is the most exciting area in which Marxist theory is being developed today. So Jason Moore's work, for example, is incredibly exciting, and there's social reproduction theory, feminists, and so on. It's excellent too. I even agreed with your critique of Moore pretty much, but then you basically stopped at the introduction, and I'm sure you've got answers to some of the questions you were posing. So, for example, you were talking about the political challenge being how to connect class politics understood in the traditional sense with gender and eco-politics and so on. I mean, it's an open question, really. I was just waiting for you to say, give something more of your own take on this, beyond a lot of stuff which you did very expertly, indeed, and with which I agree very much. And just on Alex, and even for Alex, an even briefer question. You were talking about, you basically introduced the Romanian class political structure as, the Social Democrats representing the workers, and the right parties representing the petty bourgeois bloc. But then you introduced some elements of different class valences or different class affiliations, namely the petty bourgeois bloc with foreign capital and so on. Presumably for the left it's important to get a handle on those class fragmentations within the workers' bloc as well. If, for example, the Social Democratic Party, presumably, as state managers, have very strong connections to foreign capital too. Why didn't you mention that? Or to capital in general, which, so the position of a Social Democrat state manager is very different to that of an office cleaner, in class terms, and yet you included them within the sort of working class bloc. I was wondering if you can respond on that question. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And the last question is Paul, in the middle. And we will have a second round.
It's on similar lines, and I'll be short. Attila, I really liked the paper. But there was one bit, and I've been reading Andreas Malm's book on fossil capital, in which he actually argues that it's no accident that fossil fuel was the energy of choice to fuel the Industrial Revolution, if you like, because it could be owned. And therefore to say that nature is in the extra economic sphere isn't always necessarily true. And so there's a question there about the conceptual apparatus here and where the exploitation of nature arises. I mean, I also like the last question. I would love to see where you're going with this in terms of alternatives. But the obvious question then for Alexandru is to throw your frame at Alexandru and say, to what extent is this new emerging left in Romania linked to any emerging feminist currents and or any emerging eco-socialist currents?
Thank you for that. Attila, Alexandru?
As the French says. First, I agree on what you said, original accumulation in Marx, that it's essentially capitalists just profiting from the closures and so on. I didn't get your suggestion about three categories. So besides exploitation and...
So there's dependence, expropriation, exploitation. These are different things. You seem to have sort of lumped them together.
Okay.
And I'm wondering if there's worth making...
and you meant by dependence, you meant...
So dependence is just when capital profits, benefits from there being a sort of property structure in land, for example, which capital didn't create. Whereas what we have, for example, in mechanized factory work,
yeah,
Marx,
yeah. Yeah, it's a complex question, but for example, Moore's take on this is that capital creates these so-called frontier zones. So the dependence means just the active expropriation, in the sense that capital accumulation depends on those zones created by capitalism, but at the same time those zones, those extra-economical zones, are not yet fully commodified, are not yet fully capitalized. And that's how you can make a high profit, and you can depend on this. When you, as soon as you fully, or you capitalize more these non-capitalized zones, the rate of profit will fall. So this is a dialectic between capitalism, which contains economical and extra-economical realms, and his idea is that you can make high profit when you have a so-called ecological surplus, in the sense that you invest small amounts of capital, but you use a lot of extra-economical, non-commodified cheap natures or non-capitalized zones. So this is dependence is just a relation between the two realms. Okay. Regarding Marx's critique of Moore, raised by Paul, yeah. I agree, basically, because it's highly capitalized, so you cannot say. In general, Moore's theories drawbacks is in the fact that he analyzes mainly early capitalism, and he makes another realization of capitalism. So capitalism starts essentially with colonization, and it starts already in the 14th or 50s and 16th century. So his whole theory is elaborated on this period, when you essentially, you can say, huge, fertile, cheap natures in Americas and so on. So it's highly debatable, I agree, when you come to the present period and for example, when you try to apply it to oil. He has some elaborations on this, but yeah, it's a debate. I agree on that. Okay, and because I don't want to monopolize, QA introductory session. About what you said. Well, maybe I'm infected by Marxist skepticism. But I really enjoyed your presentation. It was illuminating for me. Not participated from the start, but was there somewhere in this story. There is the Russia-Montana case, which I could take for responding to your question. I'm skeptical because this was a moment where ecological movements, in fact, ecological struggles were the how you call this, the main master theme, the main idea, the main revendication, which polarized all kind of social struggles in Romania, or all kind of recognitional and other type of social struggles. But already there you feel that you can be an ecologist on, I don't know, classical libertarian grounds. You can be an ecologist on anarchist grounds. You can be an ecologist on more leftist or Marxist grounds. So it was, in fact, and we realized this after this Russia-Montana movement was a movement against a Canadian project of what was this? Constructing precious metal exploitation by cyanide technology. That's the term. Cyanide technology. Cyanide. Okay, thanks. In Romania. And I think it was one of the biggest movements, not just ecological movement, but one of the biggest social movement in Romania, and somehow based around Cluj, because it's whatever. This is better. Okay, I stopped because there's the idea we should connect somehow these struggles, but. I'm for the moment skeptical, and for the moment I don't see how, honestly, that's why I stopped. Because it's just, it's normative imperative that you can announce, but I don't really see for the moment how we should do this. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'll take it from here to answer the question about feminism and ecologism. So as Otto said, yeah, we do have or at least apparently we have a quite strong ecologist movement in Romania. It started in 2012 with this protest against the Russia-Montana project. And the protests were like the perfect example of Laclau's chains of equivalences, because you had, socialists, fascists, liberals, everybody marching there against this project. And eventually, the leftist dimension of this protest was marginalized and suffocated by this sort of more like nationalist, sovereigntist kind of resistance to foreign capital and so on and so on. So, and actually, what is interesting about this protest is that these were the first instance of this wave of middle-class protests that have traversed the Romanian scene recently, and that culminated with the anti-corruption campaign. So you have this kind of ecologism, which is far from, emancipatory or leftist or anything like that. As for feminism, we do have, we also, in the measure in which we can talk about the Romanian intellectual left, we can talk about also about Romanian feminism. But I don't want to be resentimentary here. But as far as I know, the feminist movement in Romania had only one target so far, which is the Marxist movement in Romania. Most of their activities consisted in attacking Marxists for not having enough women in their panels or in their collective works. I don't remember any instance in which Romanian feminism had an issue with, I don't know, the hegemony center-right or the libertarian or the neoliberal ideology. Maybe this is because, if I remember correctly the statistics, Romania has the lowest imbalance in terms of wages between women and men, of course because of the communist inheritance. So this is about the feminists and the ecologists. Now together there's the question. Of course the issue becomes much more interesting when we are talking about the internal divisions of these two class blocks. For example, I find it intriguing that there is a divergence of interest inside the petit bourgeoisie or the cultural bourgeoisie between the state employees and the private employees. In normal terms, the state employees would align themselves with the interests of the workers and with, let's say, the political representation of the Social Democratic Party. However, and I think this is correct about all the Romanian middle class, since it is quite bereft of capital, since in material terms its condition is quite close to the working class, its only asset, its only proof that it is a middle class is this distinction, this violent separation from the working class. And this is why the internal conflicts of the bourgeoisie are somehow neutralized by their common hatred or common distanciation from the proletariat. You mentioned the state manager, which, if I understood correctly, you say that they might be aligned as well to the interest of foreign capital.
And Romanian capital. I mean,
yeah.
You presented them as being one homogeneous working class bloc.
Yeah. Well, it's like that. The working class obviously is not represented by the Social Democratic Party. However, the Social Democratic Party is the only party that from time to time throws some paternalist meager measure to raise the minimum wage and somehow keeps the working class in a hostage relation. Now, this paternalist relation is perfectly in line with this alliance between the local Romanian capitalists and the working class. It's this idea that these local capitalists are the only chance for provincial small communities which are otherwise uninteresting in terms of foreign investment. It's also a clash of culture here. The communist, socialist, collectivist mentality which is embraced by the working class, the Social Democratic Party, and the local capitalists against foreign capital, these rules of efficiency, transparency, so on and so on, which belongs to the other, let's say, block, historical block. You're not honest.
Thank you for your question. Just I assume we do have 2 question time, please. If you have a question, here.
First of all, thank you all for these lectures. I have a question since years. In 1975, to all this question I want to ask all of you. In 1975, the women of Iceland went on a one-day labor strike. And I keep asking myself, why is it so difficult for women to organize themselves on a labor strike, a transnational labor strike of, I don't know, weeks? Is it because it is much more than just an economic fight? It is much more political also. It is questioning, challenging the so-called male-dominated governments and power.
Thank you for that. Other question, comments, please.
You mean in Hungary or in other places? Or? I mean the question regarding
for instance, a transnational
human strike.
At least, or
Why
through Europe.
Why it's not possible?
Why it's so difficult?
Mm.
Because I think it's not only a question of a matter of the economic situation, but also it's a much more political also. The relation between, it would change or challenge the gender relation. It would make it immediately visible what is going on. And I am wondering, why is it so difficult that women would think about and seriously organize themselves? So what is it behind?
You too, you mentioned Iceland example, but as far as I know, we have a lot of historical examples in the 70s. I don't know, Marxist feminist activism and wages for housework and so on. So as far as I know, those movements already made this kind of mixed strikes and so on. So we have historical precedent, we have some mixed consequences of those movements. Also, as far as I know, in Iceland, it's legally imposed now the wage equality between men and women. But as far as I know, there's a law which came out this year. I don't know, legalize wage equality or criminalize wage inequality. I don't know. So I don't know if it's an answer, but I tried.
I want to add a small remark. I think it's related to your question, but it's definitely related to a comment made by Paul Stubbs in the previous panel. And it throws I don't know, a problematic light also on my presentation, my narrative. I mean, if this is true, perhaps my account is not so valid anymore. I'm talking about, you said that Romania is part of these 4 countries which are sliding towards a religious kind of even theocracy, let's say, at the limit. But we had the same feeling in Romania until last week. Last week we had that referendum on the definition of marriage, whereby the people was called to vote for redefining marriage as the union between a man and a woman. And in spite of all the mobilization, not only of the church and of the neo-evangelical sects, but also of the Social Democratic Party and the National Liberal Party, so both the center right and the center left had put a lot of effort in this. The referendum failed abysmally. It only managed to get 20% of the quorum. It needed 30%, and even though they extended the voting period to 2 days, they only managed to get the 20% of the vote. So I'm not sure that we are actually going in this direction, this theocracy, or I don't know. I think a lot of political parties or political leaders would like for us to go there, but I think that the people show that he doesn't care. It's not a topic for him.
Can I add a point of information on that question? Yeah. Just briefly. I've asked a question already. Sorry. Just as a point of information, the examples aren't just from ancient history or as in the 1970s. There's much more recent stuff. There's been women's strikes in Poland and Argentina. 6 months ago, there was an enormous women's strike in Spain, which shut down half the country. Both women in workplaces and in the home. 18 months ago, there was a women's strike in parts of the United States, which shut down quite a few schools, for example. And there's one of the very exciting organizations these days is the International Women's Strike, which you presumably know about, the IWS. So there's, presumably you agree there's quite a lot of exciting stuff going on here. No? Not exciting enough, but still, it's... Anyway, I shouldn't overstay my welcome. I'm sorry.
So, first of all, thank you for Alexander and Attila to have these beautiful lectures, and thank you for all of us to join us. And I would like to put an emphasis on the panels in the afternoon. We will have 2 panels. Which will co-organize our partners. It's Eszmélet Journal and the Polanyi Center. Please join us in the afternoon, and please join us to have a little lunch in the behind room. Please try to continue this compilation, and we would like to start 2 p.m. Thank you for your attention.
Nagyon köszönöm a segítséget. És mikor nincs hogy itt csak ilyen magas csajok dolgoznak, te is jól nézel ki, ahogy mászkálsz. Igen. Édesíteni a
Az is egy dolog. Szükségem lenne.
az elcím. Elküldöm, mert a Krisz visszajelzőt nem fog péntek, meg a vágom. Jó, elküldöm neked persze. Hogy... Megviszem a laptopot, tehát elérhető leszek, meg holnap után olyan, mintha otthon lennék, csak nem itt. Abszolút. Csak most lelépek mindjárt, de elérhető leszek. Köszi! Igen.
Üdvözlöm, Róla Péter.
Üdvözlöm. Az a helyzet, hogy ugye akkor fel szeretnék venni, és a hangot szeretnék a mi hangrendszerünkből rögzíteni. Na, az a helyzet, hogy fogalmam sincs, tehát azt tudom csinálni, hogy megmutatom, hogy mi van itt hátul. Jó. Illetve van itt egy hangtechnikus kollega, több is, akik a tolmácsfülke miatt vannak itt, és ők már rákapcsolódtak a mi rendszerükből. Mert én tudom, hogy mindig meg tudjuk oldani, csak azt sem tudom. Nekünk kicsit összekapcsolt rendszerünk. Úgyhogy mindjárt szólok valamelyiküknek, és ők jobban átlátják, hogy mi van. Mert úgy van fölöttem,
Ez a mércé esetleg?